never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Hopefully everybody enjoys the final weekend in the month of February. It seems like we just started a new year and we're already only 5 days away from the month of March, which, by the way, my grandmother has a birthday at the end of March. But anyway, on to today's video. And if you follow the channel and you watched yesterday's video, then you know what I'm going to talk about today here on the channel. And in the video yesterday, I said I might talk about it because honestly, I wasn't sure. Because coming up here in a couple of weeks, I believe March the 9th is the actual 2-year anniversary of our YouTube channel. And if you have followed the channel for any period of time at all, or maybe since the very beginning of it, then you know 99% of the time I only talk about what happens leading up to the games, during the games, and after the games. And that's it. I try to leave the political stuff to the people who like to bring politics into sports, because I don't. I feel like they should be separated. If you want to follow politics, follow politics. If you want to follow sports, follow sports. But sometimes things happen and you just can't avoid them. Now, some people will bring up, just the most irrelevant stuff ever. They'll talk about, a player that got a girl pregnant. That happens every day all around the world. Those are things that you just shouldn't talk about unless you would rather talk the political side of sports than actual sports. But things like this, you just can't avoid. I believe the only other big time thing that's happened that I've brought up here on the channel was the whole Deshaun Watson thing when it was going on. And honestly, I really didn't go in too deep of details and go in depth about that. But I did bring it up because at that time, it was something that was very, very big in the sports world. And this right here has really been talked about probably since the middle of January. But then it kind of got pushed to the side, got pushed away and died down until earlier this week when some video evidence came out. And when that video evidence came out, it brought this up all over again. And now, if you try to watch anything or listen to anything in the sports world, it's all you hear about. But it's like an actual trial that's not sports related. If you don't follow it from start to finish and only hear a little here, a little there, you really don't know the full details of what's going on. And that is the whole murder situation going on right now with the Alabama basketball program. So I figured I would give you a lot of the key notes and a lot of the key details, things that are factual, not just hearsay that we know, to try to catch you up on what's going on in case you do not know. Now, Darius Miles, who has since been dismissed from the Alabama basketball team, he shot and killed Jamia Jonay Harris, who I believe was 23 years old, with a gun supplied by Brandon Miller. Now, Darius Miles, as I mentioned, has been dismissed, but Brandon Miller is still on the basketball team, and I think that's the reason that people keep talking about this. Had Brandon Miller been dismissed when Darius Miles got dismissed, you wouldn't hear about it. But since he's able to continue playing, that's what has people in an uproar still talking about it. But Brandon Miller is the one who supplied the gun to Darius Miles. And according to some people that are supposedly in the know about the laws of Alabama, they say that Brandon Miller can't be charged in the state of Alabama because he didn't actually commit the crime. Now, I will freely admit I don't know anything about the laws in Alabama. I do good to know about the laws in the state that I live in, because if you try to follow the laws in every state and memorize them, you'll drive yourself crazy or pull your hair out, which, as you can tell, I don't have much to pull out. But each state has their own laws in every situation possible. So what you can do in one state, you can't do in the next state. What you can't do in one state, you can do in the next state. So every state is different. But if it's true that Brandon Miller can't be charged in Alabama because he didn't commit the crime, then the entire state of Alabama should be ashamed of themselves, because yeah, he didn't commit the crime, but we all know he's the one that caused it to happen by bringing the gun, which is wrong. But earlier this week, there was some video evidence, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, that came out, and it was a video of Brandon Miller using his car to block the driveway so that Harris couldn't leave. So not only did he bring Darius Miles the gun, he took his car and parked it at an angle where the female could not leave. So he stood there while it happened, allowed it to happen, and made sure that it happened by using his car to block the driveway. Now, you can't tell me that whatever the situation was between Darius Miles and the young lady, that they couldn't sit down and just talk about it. And this is the kind of thing that has caused people that hate guns to hate guns, because our society has gone from just sitting down to talk about things to, oh, I'll just shoot them. And there are ways to get out of situations besides pulling a gun on somebody. But Coach Nate Oates had a press conference, and his original press conference, not verbatim, but he pretty much in a roundabout way just said that Brandon Miller was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that he can't control everything anybody does outside of practice. And the entire time he's known Brandon Miller, he's never been in trouble, and he hasn't been in trouble since this happened. So now they're saying that they want Nate Oates to do another press conference. Well, of course they do, because he sounded like an absolute idiot in the first press conference. And this is something that, believe it or not, I actually discussed with a good friend of mine who is a North Carolina fan about 7 or 8 years ago when they were getting into so much trouble off the court. He kept trying to defend Roy Williams by saying that Roy Williams doesn't know what the players do all day and all night. And I said, that's hogwash. Yeah, it might be true that he doesn't know, he's not there, but I was a teenager and I was a young man at one time. When you're out doing things you shouldn't do in the middle of the night, you tell your buddies, you tell your friends. So yeah, Roy Williams may not have been there when all that stuff at that time was going on, but when you're in a gym for 3-4 hours a day with 15, 16 young men, you hear stuff. You know what they're doing. But of course, it's common nature when your team does something wrong, you want to defend your team. Anytime a team is doing something wrong, 95% of their fan base is going to say, oh, they're not doing anything, because nobody wants to come out and admit that their team did anything wrong. There's been times since I've been watching sports, you hear all the time that a certain team, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, whatever the sport is, they're doing something illegal. And everybody in the world knows it's going on. But if you ask the fans of that team, they either say, oh, they're not doing it, oh, that's rumor, oh, that's made up, oh, there's no facts. Or they'll say, well, they're not doing anything different anybody else is doing, which is pretty much admitting that your team is doing wrong, but you're trying to defend it by saying that everybody else does it too. But just because everybody else does it too doesn't mean it's still not wrong. What's the old saying? Two wrongs don't make a right. So that's pretty much the background of what's going on right now. And people are hating on Brandon Miller for still being allowed to play. And people are hating on Nate Oates for saying what he said. It wasn't wrong place, wrong time. You drove the car and put yourself there. So if you were in the wrong place, it was your own dadgum fault. But when you hear about stories like this, that's why people say that NCAA stands for not caring about academics. Because as collegiate sports grows and gets larger and larger, you see more and more signs every day that they don't care about academics. Now, originally, 20 years ago, they said it stood for not caring about athletes. But obviously, over time, it's been proven that's not true. They'll do anything they can to protect the athlete. But now, academics, they don't care about. Back in the day, they let North Carolina basketball players make up classes to pass so they could play basketball. So obviously they care about athletes. They don't care about academics. But the only reason that Brandon Miller is still being allowed to play, and the only reason Nate Oates is still the coach, is because they're a top 5 basketball team. Had this been a typical Bama basketball team that's hovering around 500, they would have kicked Brandon Miller off the team the same time they kicked Darius Miles off the team. They would have fired Nate Oates and moved on. But they actually have a legitimate chance to win a national title in basketball. I don't think they will. I don't think they're good enough, but I could be wrong. They might. But they have a chance to. So what's going to happen is they're going to keep Brandon Miller on the team. They're going to let Nate Oates coach. And more than likely, when the season's over with, Nate Oates will either resign on his own or he'll get fired. He'll probably get hired by somebody else within 2 years. And then in 4 or 5 years, or whenever it is that basketball team in Tuscaloosa is terrible again, they'll put themselves on probation for 2 or 3 years, and they'll take away the wins that they've received that year, and that'll be their punishment for what they're doing right now. You're not going to punish yourself when you have a chance to win a national title in any sport. You always punish yourself 3 or 4 years later when you suck. That way, when you punish yourself, you're really not punishing yourself because you suck anyway. But at least when you punish yourself, you've got a reason why you suck. But it's not like Bama basketball is great every year, and it's not like they're going to be great again for the next 5 years, because they're not. So that's the background of all the key stuff going on right now. And that's my personal opinion of what's going to happen. After the season, Nate Oates will leave, either forcefully leave or on his own leave. And he'll probably take a year off in basketball as far as head coaching. And in a couple of years, when they suck, they'll put themselves on self-proclaimed probation, but they will wait till they suck again. So, of course, except for Bama fans, nobody else wants Bama to win the national title in basketball because of that. But I don't think we got to worry about it because I don't think they're good enough. But as I said, I could be wrong. That's just me. But let me remind you about Homes for Our Troops, the publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since its inception in 2004, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Why did the chicken go to the gym? To work on his pecs. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.